Thank you very much, Brian, for that apolitical introduction that you've just given me there. Well, I think I need to start, at the moment, I need to start every single speech or debate that I take part in with an explanation for my moustache, because although I've seen at least there's one gentleman here who's got quite a flamboyant moustache and beard, I'm doing this for Movember, and there may be other men in the audience who are doing this. It's a prostate, there we are, we've got a man waving over there. It's a prostate cancer raising awareness initiative. Last year there were 1 million donors who took part or contributed, and they raised about £25 million. It's a campaign that is now gone global. And if you go on the Movember website and you type in my name, you'll find my picture, and you may spot that my staff currently are running a poll for constituents to ask them to choose what style of moustache I should allow this to develop into. I've only got about another 6 days in which to do it, though, because it's definitely coming off on the 1st of December, if my wife has anything to do with it. Now, the only reason I mention the moustache is because, of course, we've got some real characters who are involved in the business of policing who have also sported moustaches in the past. So Poirot comes to mind. And a few people have likened my moustache to that of Poirot, which I've not been terribly comfortable with. The other alternative, which I think is much preferable, although I'm not sure that he articulates a particularly liberal view on policing issues, is that of Magnum. So I'm quite happy with Tom Selleck. I think that's the way I'm going, even if his views in terms of policing probably don't fit comfortably with mine. And obviously I don't have the Ferrari or the Rolex to go with the moustache. But to get to the serious business of this morning, the Coalition Programme for Government, I think that is the lens through which we have to look at what a liberal view of policing is. Now, you'll know that this programme was put together over a 3 or 4 day period. Interesting that other countries spend rather longer than this. I think Belgium is up to 180 days, I think, in terms of trying to draw together their coalition programme of government, and not that there are too many comparisons that we can draw with Iraq. I think Iraq are experiencing similar problems in terms of drawing up a coalition programme. But to look at a liberal view on policing, I think we need to go wider than simply what is proposed in policing terms, and look at the whole issue of civil liberties, for instance. And it's very clear that the coalition programme commits the coalition government to a full programme of measures to roll back what I think has been quite a heavy impact on our civil liberties in recent years. And hence, one of the very first measures that we introduced was to scrap identity cards. Other measures that are coming down the pipeline, increasing the scope of the Freedom of Information Act, looking at or changing the way the DNA database operates so that there are far fewer innocent people whose details are kept on the database, restoring rights to non-violent protest. Not that one would think from what's happened yesterday that there are any particular issues about certainly protest, in that those went ahead. And I understand that I've been told by my local police that the van that was destroyed was actually from Sutton Borough, so it's one of our own vans that was destroyed in the protest yesterday. On the civil liberties front, looking very carefully at all of the agenda to do with counter-terrorism and the impact that has had, and whether the measures that we've got are both effective in terms of tackling terrorism, but also whether the impact they have from a civil liberties perspective justifies the means that are being used. And perhaps finally I'd mention in relation to civil liberties the whole issue of child detention. I visited a detention centre a couple of weeks ago here, very close to where we are, to look at the environment in which people are kept, and I'm talking specifically about children. And I think we are on track as a government to get rid of child detention for children whose families are due to be deported. And I think that is something that should be welcomed and is very much part of the coalition government's programme of, I think, restoring some fairly fundamental civil liberties. On the whole issue of justice, we're about to embark on a review of sentencing policy, and I think the statements that Kenneth Clarke has made recently, which I accept have perhaps presented some challenges for perhaps some people within the Conservative Party, if not within the Liberal Democrats, are very much part of the coalition programme's agenda of actually looking at what is effective. I think the problem we've had in the past is that what is effective hasn't necessarily been implementable because it comes in for a lot of flack. So actually looking at the effect of short-term prison sentences, working out on the basis of evidence that they do not actually deliver very much in terms of reducing reoffending, and looking at alternatives to ensure that reoffending is reduced, which is, I think, after all, what we are all seeking. We're not seeking a simple a cycle which sees people going in for a short-term prison sentence, they come back out again, often perhaps with £40 in their pocket, no home to go to, no job to go to, and surprise, surprise, within a couple of weeks, if not a couple of days, they are back in again, and that cycle continues. We've got to do something about that. One other thing that I'd mention, which I think is something that we haven't actually done in the coalition programme, is extending anonymity in rape cases to defendants. And I think that's because we looked at the evidence, and really the conclusion was that that was not a terribly sensible policy to move forward, and therefore that policy has been, or that proposal has been abandoned and is not going to be pursued. So I think the coalition government are willing to make changes as and when they are necessary, or the evidence suggests that they are, and that may give you perhaps some hope in relation to the issue which I know is fundamental to this audience in terms of elected police and crime commissioners. Then finally, in relation to crime and policing, look at the range of measures that we're proposing there, and I think the overriding principle is that we want local communities to have a much greater say in how they are policed at a local level. And that means the Home Office backing off in terms of the very centralised approach that has previously been adopted in relation to local activity, local policing activity. And we want much greater control for that at a local level. It is also true in the coalition programme, and I'm going to quote this specifically, that we signed up to the following: we will introduce measures to make the police more accountable through oversight by a directly elected individual who will be subject to strict checks and balances by locally elected representatives. So that is what is in the coalition programme. Now, as Brian has said, clearly the different parties had different views on this, although I think it's fair to say that all of the political parties, Labour, Liberal Democrat and Conservative, did have plans or have previously attempted to introduce plans that introduced a different way of ensuring there was local accountability. Now, I hope that what I've set out, even though you may not all be Liberals, I hope the broad brush of what the coalition programme is putting forward is something that you will approve of. It's about bolstering our civil liberties, it's about promoting policies that are effective in tackling reoffending, and it's about giving greater autonomy to local communities and local policing. So the Liberal view, indeed the coalition view, and the Conservative view is that the Home Office should not erect a series of hoops for the local police to jump through and a series of targets which they have to respond to that are set at a national level. And that must mean that there's more scope to allow things to happen, the sorts of initiatives that my own borough, Sutton, has promoted, such as putting together both the police who are responsible for safer neighbourhood teams, dealing with antisocial behaviour, and the local authority staff who have similar responsibilities, putting them under one person who could either be a police officer, could be someone from the local authority, or could be someone from outside, depending on how the appointment process works. And that is working very effectively in Sutton. And I hope that is the sort of thing that by withdrawing some of that central control will allow more authorities to do.